Okie dokie, let's get started with Module 5, Lesson 13 problem set. And in this problem set, we are continuing what we started in Lesson 12, and that is comparing two fractions using the number line. The only difference between this lesson and yesterday's lesson is all the fractions yesterday were between 0 and 1 whole. In this lesson, we now are looking at numbers from 1 whole to 2 wholes. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, let's look at the first one and see if we can figure out what's going on here. Well, number 1 says to go ahead and place the following fractions on the number line given. Well, if we look at 4/3, now just remember, keep in mind that 3/3 is going to be, that's going to be 1 whole. So 1 whole would equal 3/3. So if we look at this, we think 3/3. So then if we would be looking at from 1 to 2, and we have to sort of think about this into thirds, so we can sort of portion that off into 3 pieces. So this would be a third, another third, and another third. So then 4/3 would really, if you looked at 4/3, 4/3 would really be 1 1/3. So if we put 4/3 approximately here, 4/3 about there, then that's the same thing really as 1 1/3, because we had 1 whole all the way over here. That's 1 1/3. And then if we look at 11/6, well, let's see, what is 11/6 equal? Let's see. Well, let's see, 6/6 is equal to 1, so that's 1 whole. 11 take away 6, so it's 6/6 and 5/6. Okay, you have 6/6 and 5/6. So this is really going to be 1 whole and 5/6. So 11/6 is going to come somewhere down here, and we're going to have 11/6 be down here, and that's going to equal 1 and 5/6. Okay, so there's a little bit more work in this lesson. We really have to sort of figure out, well, what is the fraction we're talking about? And then in C, what we have is, well, 12/12, that would equal 1 whole. So that would be 12/12, and then we'd have 5/12. Well, 5/12 is a little less than a half. Okay, it's a little less than a half. So we're going to put that right about here. So that's going to be 17/12. Put 17/12 here. Okay, and that's the same thing as saying 1 and 5/12. So all I was doing was basically converting the fraction that had a greater numerator than denominator into the whole and the fraction, which is called a mixed number. So now we're going to use that information in number 1 and then use it to compare fractions in number 2. So let's look at number 2. Now number 2 says that we are now comparing 1 and 5/6 to 1 and 5/12. Well, if I use another color here and show you that 1 and 5/6 is here, okay, and 1 and 5/12 is here, well, let's see, 1 and 5/6 is greater than 1 and 5/12. Okay, and then if we look at the next set, 1 and 1/3, well, then 1 and 1/3 is here. There's 1 and 1/3. Okay, and compare that to 1 and 5/12. Compare that to this one here. Well, 1 and 1/3, that's going to be less than 1 and 5/12. So there you go. Now we're going to do pretty much the same thing for the next problem, for problem number 3. So let's do that. Let's go scroll down a little bit so we can work with number 3. And once again, we're going to place these fractions on the number line. And once again, we're looking at, on our number line, we're going from 1 to 2. So all these fractions are going to be mixed numbers. They're going to have a 1 whole plus a fractional part. So if we look at 11/8, that's equal to 8/8, and then 8/8 plus we're going to have 3/8. Okay, so that's what we're looking at here. And then for 7/4, we're looking at 4/4 plus 3/4. So that's going to be 1 3/4. And then finally, 15/12 is 12/12, which is 1 whole, plus 3/12 to get 15/12. Okay, well, where do these go on the number line? Okay, well, let's look at that. The first one is 1 3/8. Well, this has already been divided into, well, actually, these are fourths here. So if we looked at that, that would be 1 1/4 right here. So if we wanted eighths, all we'd have to do is cut these into half again, and then we can look at this and say 1, 2, 3/8 would be right here. So this right here would be our 1 3/8. This is our 1 3/8 right here. 1 3/8. It doesn't matter which way we do it. We could do it like this, and this is our 11/8. Okay, that's our 11/8. And then the next one is 1 whole and 3/4. Well, that one's already given to us right here. This is going to be 3/4. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. So this is going to be our 1 3/4 down here, which is also can be 7/4. Okay. And then our last one is 15/12. Well, 12/12. Okay, 12/12 is 1 whole, and then 3/12. Well, 3/12, that's going to be, where would that show up? Where would 3/12 show up? Well, let's see. 3/12. It's going to be down. Well, let's look at that 3/12 again a little closer. 3/12. Well, I see if I can divide both the numerator and the denominator by 3. What I'm going to end up is 1/4. So 3/12 is actually 1/4. So basically, it's going to go right there. And we're going to have, this is going to be our 15/12. It's going to be right there. And that's also going to be 1 3/12. So that's the same thing as 1 1/4 is 1 3/12. Okay. So now for number 4, what we're supposed to do is use the number line in problem 3 to explain your reasoning that you used to determine whether 11/8 or 15/12 is greater. Alrighty, well, let's think about that. Okay, so what we ended up with is we found out where 11/8 and 15/12 were on the number line, and then when we plotted them, we saw that 11/8 was to the right of 15/12, therefore it's greater. There you have it. And now let's move on to the next section, and sometimes known as the flip side. Flip side. And in this section, number 5, we have a lot of different 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 on number 5. And we're comparing fractions just like we did on yesterday's problem set and homework. This time we're comparing again, and we're going to use greater than or less than on the lines. And a brief explanation referring to benchmarks. All right, well, let's take a little look-see here. We have 3/8 and 7/12. Well, 3/8, I know that is less than a half. So 3/8 is less than 1/2. Oops. 3/8 is less than 1/2. And 7/12 is going to be a little more than a half. 7/12 is more than 1/2. Therefore, 7/12 is bigger. There you go. I'm not going to go through all these, so go ahead and pause the video, and when you're done, check your answers. Hey, wait a minute. You said check your answers. There's only one answer there. Well, yeah, that's true. I wanted to show you this one, though. 5/12, that's a little bit less than a half, because 6/12 would be half. 7/8 is almost 1, so 7/8 is very close to 1, so we're going to go ahead and give that greater than there. Now pause the video. Alrighty, how'd you do? Oh, wait a minute, Mr. Kagordo. There's some more you haven't done. Well, let's look at those real quickly then, since there's 2 more we haven't done. We have 8/12 and 8/4. Well, wait a minute. 8/12, that's going to be less than 1. 8/4 is going to be 2 whole pieces. 8/4 is equal to the number 2. So this is going to be less than 1. So this one's definitely, 2 is definitely bigger. And then lastly, we have, well, 5/7 and 16/10. Well, 5/7 is, that's going to be, that's going to be less than 1.5, and 16/10 is going to be more than 1.5, so therefore it goes this way. All right, well, there you have it. And once again, as usual, your problem set is done, and hope that helps with your homework, and have a good one. And I'll catch you next time, matey. Same time, same place. Hasta la vista. Bye-bye. Psst, it's over. Get to work.